I love that jazzy music. It's the right time of night. We are back, and you are listening to The Adam Harman Show on 790 KABC. Ooh, something's going on here. Something's going on here. Oh, my goodness. Is it that time again?
It is that time again.
Well, then it's time for...
The fabulous Dovie Leroy, Cosmic Astrologer.
I am feeling literally so cosmic, it's just silly.
Oh, good.
And you know something? I think the cosmos has so much to tell us.
They do. They do.
Well, we're here to listen to you. Lean upon us and give us all sorts of great wisdom.
Giving you all the secrets today.
Well,
considering what we talked about.
Considering what we talked about. Oh, no. The secrets. Oh, no.
Yes.
Here we go. So what's happening there?
So we do have Mercury entering Pisces, and this means that there may be a little bit of moodiness in conversations, and whether that is moodiness with you and the way that you converse or with the people you are conversing with. And the reason for that is because it may be hard to explain your thoughts. And because it's going to be such open-mindedness, you may just not say anything due to how complicated your thoughts may be.
That sounds very complicated.
Just a little bit.
There we go. So we should mind our words, eh?
Yeah, and definitely understand that it is possible to ease into lovely conversations and that they can be flowing and open.
Good.
So also, there's going to be a lot of daydreaming going on around.
Daydreaming?
Yeah,
Tell me
la-di-da
more.
energy. Because of the open-minded energy from the Piscean transit, it's going to be like a fairy tale fantasy kind of a vibe that's going on in your mind because it's going to be so out there.
Is it fairy tale fantasy good or fairy tale fantasy bad?
Well, it can fog you or it can be amazing for creating.
Ah, okay, good.
Yes. But some advice during this time is definitely try to think before you speak. Because if you don't necessarily do that, you may feel a little flustered and then you may just shut down and just not say anything.
Okay.
Yes, because your thoughts can be harder to express. Yes. So we also have the sun entering Pisces. A lot of Piscean energy is happening around, all the fishy energy.
So what does that mean? Do we go out
Emotions.
and buy flounder and enjoy ourselves? What's going on?
Well, if you'd like, but this is when feelings are going to be high because feelings are what define a Pisces. And depending on your chart is how you are going to be able to attach to these feelings because there are some signs out there that it's harder to tap into their emotions and this can become a little bit uncomfortable. And this will be a time when you're following your instincts and your feelings instead of reasoning and planning. So say you're in a relationship, for example, just throwing this out there.
I am in a relationship right now.
Yes, and say the person you're with is not necessarily putting their foot in and they're not paying the bills or they're not making you feel special or anything. And in your head, you're thinking, you know what, if I just do this, this, or this, or if they just move past this, it'll all be okay. But in your heart, you know they'll never change. So you'll actually be able to tap into your heart rather than your head and be able to flow with that. Yes, and something to know is that Piscean energy is very empathic. So if you're going out and you're around people, you may feel how they're feeling. So say you're at a party and it's all like, woo, crazy fun. You might be really hyping into that energy. Or say you're in, say, a funeral. You may feel that extreme sadness in your heart that is really, really there.
I'll only go to New Orleans funerals then. There we go. We're going to party it up, folks.
Yeah. And definitely watch out for high sensitivity because you are going to be feeling extremely emotional during this time. And sometimes people can be, they can not be in control of their emotions. And then it'll just start becoming, your emotions get kicked into high gear. And then you are like all over the place with your emotions. And you're like, what am I doing? And it's like sappiness.
just a mess.
Yes. And another thing to watch out for is escapism because you're going to be daydreaming. You're going to be fantasizing about things. You may drift off and escape when things become overwhelming because there is going to be so much emotion. Yeah. And then we also have Venus conjuncting Neptune in Pisces.
Okay.
So this is a transit of two different expressions. Now, Neptune rules Pisces, and that's about compassion. And then Venus rules Libra, but that is about love. So it's those two different balances that can kind of work together or go against each other. And this has to do with rose-colored glasses. So you are, your dreams or fantasies may gloss over your realities. And you may not actually be, seeing what's really happening. And once those glasses come off, though, is when the harsh, painful truth becomes very clear.
The light of reality.
Reality. Hit you in the face.
Ouch. Whack.
Yeah, and we choose how we are affected by this transit.
Okay.
So something to do during this time is be completely open and honest. Do not hide anything from yourself and do not hide anything from others. And gauge your relationship choices carefully. And that means that if you are contacting something and you realize that you're being extremely emotional or that it's hurting your heart, understand that you can detach yourself from your emotions if you're conscious.
Right.
Yes, but don't become completely detached. That might get a little scary.
This is really great advice. How does someone get more of this advice from you and maybe have their chart done by you?
Yeah, so you would contact me through Dovie Leroy, astrology.com.
How do you spell that? Come on, here we go.
DovieLeroy, astrology. I hope you know how to spell that.
I hope so.
.com.
That's great. Dovie Leroy, it's always great to have you on The Adam Harman Show.
Aw, thanks.
Aw. Well, hey, now we're at that point in our show. It's called the Be the Change moment. Once a wise man said, listen, if you want change in the world, it's probably smart that you be the change that you want to see in the world. Today, we talked about manifesting with our guest, Kurtis Lee Thomas. Make sure you get his book. Great book. Some of the bigger manifestations, though, may require working with others who don't have the same perspective on life that you do. Here's a short story about differing perspectives from my book, Seeing the Angel in the Mirror, available on Amazon.com. This section was known as Pointing the Finger. They say it's not polite to point. Do you know where that came from? Well, think about it. When someone points at you, you can actually feel it as well as see it. Is there something more here that meets the eye? Before the birth of Christ, there was a small yet prosperous village at the foothills of the Himalayas. The people of the village were so connected with nature and each other that they grew to understand one simple fact. To respect others is to respect yourself, because there is no difference. This belief included animals, plants, and all other elements of nature. Their connectedness gave them the opportunity to enjoy great health and abundance. When one of their people would get injured, they were brought to a bed of reeds that was conspicuously placed on the center of the village square. All of the villagers would drop what they were doing and assemble in a large circle around that one injured friend. When every last member of the community, and they didn't leave anybody out, when every last member was present in the square, they would all lift their hands and point one finger to the one on the bed of reeds, and the other one, the left hand, would be in the air with their palms facing the sky. They pointed and smiled warmly at their friend. The wounded villager's body began to move as it were being lovingly tickled by dozens of fingers, and their wounds would spontaneously heal. The villagers would go back to their chores with smiles, laughters, and chatter. The healed villager would fall into a gentle sleep and wake cheerfully a few hours later. One day, a stonecutter came from the village, and this stonecutter found a stranger in the village quarry. The stranger was unconscious, and he was all of a sudden compelled to take and gently lift that stranger who was wounded onto his stone cart, and he headed back to the village with him. He laid the stranger onto that bed of reeds in the square. And all of a sudden, he called all the villagers. They came quickly. The fact that he was an outsider to the village didn't slow their response in the least. They began to point and smile at the wounded outsider. His body began to rise from the reeds and undulate. His eyes opened and were soon filled with fear. He looked around at the villagers. The closest one was 10 feet away, but he could feel only all of their fingers moving around deep inside his body. His wound spontaneously healed. He jumped to his feet and he yelled, "Stop!" He ran out to the tall, thin, elderly villager who was standing closest to him and asked, "What are you people doing to me?" He yelled this to the man. "Healing your wounds," the man replied calmly. The outsider turned to the crowd and shouted the following: "Where I come from, I am a great ruler, and I do not tolerate this type of evil. In my kingdom or anywhere else my feet settle to the soil. I will return with an army to rid this land of your sinful treachery." The army came and destroyed those who knew only love. In the ruler's kingdom, pointing was outlawed. 3,000 years later, it's just considered bad manners. Throughout history, fear and ignorance have separated us from each other, our nature and our true potential. We are turning the corner now. The future is bright. The adventure begins. Just remember who you are. That's from my book, Seeing the Angel in the Mirror, and you can get it on Amazon.com. I think it's $11.11. But I think it's important to point out that we need to get past all of our converging and conflicting interpretations of the world to understand that we're all from one place. We're all from Source. I think it's also important to be able to understand that we have an opportunity every single day in the way we interact with others. Do we interact from love, or do we interact with fear? Well, we're getting at that point right now where it's time to wrap things up at the Adam Harman Show. You know, tune in next Saturday night. We're going to have a great show featuring Dr. Linda Ellison under Courageous Women in Medicine. Her story is really marvelous, and you're going to be blown away by it. So until next time, all of us here at the Adam Harman Show would like to thank you for listening, and we hope you have a week filled with loving and abundance.